Shanker Singham is CEO of Competere and a former UK and US trade advisor, and joins me. Your view on the special relationship?
You know, the US and the UK clearly have had and continue to have a bond in terms of national interests and permanent interests because of shared language and shared culture, you know, the common law, the common approach to markets, competition as an organising principle sort of in the way their markets work and how they regulate. I mean, all of these things are reasons why they share interests, and they've shared interests for a long time, and I think they will continue to share those interests, you know, going forward. But I think what you need to when you look at it through that lens, you know, the UK was able to take advantage of all of that and become the first country that had a trade deal with the new tariff policy of the US administration. And I also think it's too, you know, by personalizing this to Trump, we don't get to any solutions, because a lot of these interests that he's expressing, or the US administration is expressing, are interests that the US has. I mean, if you look at Greenland, for example, you know, there have been for some time significant interests in Greenland because we are, you know, we're getting to a point of reducing the number of shipping lanes around the world to maybe 8 or 10, including the Arctic. You've got critical minerals that can't be mined at the moment in Greenland because of uranium being connected there. You've got China and Russia investment, which the Americans obviously don't like. There's a battle for the world's operating system between the US and China all over the world. So you've got to sort of look at it through those lenses, and that's without even touching things like undersea cables and satellites in space, and for which Greenland is actually quite important. So, you know, it's clear that the US has an interest in Greenland. Trump has a very specific way of opening up a negotiation, but you might say, well, if he hadn't done this, you know, we probably wouldn't be talking about Greenland in the way that we are now. So we'll see where this all ends up. But I think the problem for the UK, and the reason that we've had our trade deals sort of put on hold, is, again, it's about the interests of the United States. And, you know, we have diverged from the sort of normal competition-based system in areas like digital policy, where we've aligned to the European approach, in areas like agriculture, where, again, we're aligning to the European approach, which is something the Americans have been very strongly opposing for decades now. They take issues to do with online free speech, as we all know, extremely seriously. They are very sceptical about the UK's approach in that area. If you continue to add up these things that are divergent from what they would perceive to be American interests, then, you know, then your bond is going to get, you know, considerably weakened, which is, I think, what has been happening in the last year. Now, all that being said, I think the UK can, by correcting those issues of digital and agriculture and all these other things, I think the UK can play quite an important role in this sort of geopolitical moment here we have in the Arctic, because actually one of the most important areas with regard to shipping lines, with regard to the inevitable militarization of this region, is the Greenland UK gap, which is basically, this is where all the Russian submarines and all the submarines that then go into the North Atlantic, that's how they get there. So the UK is a really important player in all of this, and I think what the US would like to see, and what the Trump administration would like to see, is the UK playing a more constructive role in understanding the concerns that they actually have here, and their grave doubts, frankly, that the Europeans and the UK can actually protect those shipping lanes and those undersea cables and all of those things if the Russians and the Chinese decide that they're going to play around with them, which they clearly already have.
Thank you for your time. Shanker Singham is CEO of Competere and former UK and US trade advisor.